Thomas made, I think, are absolutely valid. And I think that what I wanted to focus on a little bit is what does that mean for the Chinese market? Because I think Thomas had a great talk last night, and I think Chinese internet users are probably amongst the most cynical users in the world. I think they're also probably Chinese people. I think are very, very anxious. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of pent up energy, I think, going on in China for a number of reasons. Actually, The Economist has a really good article this week about basically it's called "Angry China" is the cover, and the reason being is one of the reasons why the government has such a tight control, or why it's trying to control the messaging so minutely, is because this flash mob mentality that's happening in China could very easily turn against the government. So all this stuff that's sort of being directed towards all this stuff is being directed towards foreigners, or towards the French, or towards protesters, towards Tibet, could very easily turn around and actually be focused on the government. So I think to that extent, the government is very, very paranoid about maintaining control over the media. That being said, though, I think that there's also a lot of interesting things happening in China today. Where if you ever have time to actually spend with the government officials, with very senior guys, you're going to find they're amongst sort of some of the more cynical ones as well. That you find a lot of the government officials I speak to all realize that down the road they're going to have to open up. They're going to have to open up the economy. They're going to have to make it a lot more freedom of the press. They're going to have to create more participation. In fact, actually, the next potential, the guy who's lined up to be the next president 5 years from now, is supposedly has in the past come out has probably been amongst the most reform-minded in terms of having freedom of press, having some more limited forms of democracy. But all that being said, I think today, to be successful in China, if you're an internet company or an entrepreneur, you have to sort of take all that angst and all that anxiety and sort of take that into consideration. To give you an idea, just like the 50 centers, a lot of China's PR today is basically paid journalism. So a lot of journalists get paid there to write articles. A lot of the posts that you see on BBSs are paid to be put up there. So that just fuels that cynicism for people on the internet. So a lot of the internet today in China is all about community, and it's all about trying to find ways of creating sort of more genuine experiences around the different social groups. So that's why you find that a lot of places like QQ. I think why QQ, one of the reasons why it took off so quickly was
QQ is a large, giant social network which has IM clients.
IM and BBSs, and it's become really a virtual world. A lot of this is because that's where people are connecting. A lot of people, the origins of China's internet is really the BBS. It's really bulletin boards, and that's sort of the foundation of the internet. So a lot of what's going on the internet is really around social, and it's around the community. What you also find about about the profile of people on the internet. In fact, I'd say the fastest and biggest growing segment on the internet is, of course, 16 and 24-year-olds. There, this is a generation that grew up under one-child rule. So a lot of these guys are only children. They were sort of doted on. And a lot of these guys, you have to realize, most of these kids, their parents were probably farmers or peasants before. And now they've got sort of the pressure. If they marry, they're going to be one couple supporting four parents, and they're going to have one. If you actually roll it forward, you think about it, in another generation, there will be no cousins, no aunts, no uncles. There won't be this sort of extended family in China. So that creates us a lot of this pressure on sort of this next youth generation to really be able to take care of their parents, take care of their families, and also just really make a lot of money. So I think that's really why you see today so much energy in China is focused around getting rich, making money. And also you find that all the people who are successful, who've made money in China, they're also they're all, generally speaking, self-made millionaires, self-made. So all the heroes that people have in terms of success stories, all these guys, Jack Ma's probably the sort of most iconic one that everybody knows about. These people are all self-made. They all came out of nowhere and made a lot of money. So that's why you find that this next generation, it's very focused on sort of the me generation. It's very self-centered, very focused on getting rich, taking care of themselves, taking care of their families. So I think that a lot of times when I'm sort of advising companies and we're trying to figure out ways to sort of be successful and sell to China, it's really about targeting the right communities, finding the right niches, and really building the communities step by step in the country. One other thing I'll sort of say also about sort of working with the government, since a lot of people are very scared about working with the government. The concept of government actually in China is a little is certainly. I grew up in the U.S. I grew up in Silicon Valley. So growing up in Silicon Valley, a couple assumptions that you have about the government. Number one is sort of it's all politicians, so it's the guys who probably aren't successful in business or who can or who've made some money and want to go into government. Secondly, the government can't help you; it only collects taxes. In China, it's a lot different. So in China, the very best, the very smartest people are selected very early on to basically go into government. So a lot of people want to join the government. It's sort of the seat of power. Secondly, because the government is controlling everything from media to sort of regulations to land and things and resources, to be successful there, it's very important to play ball and to actually work with the government or find ways of working together. Because what you find is that the government can give you a lot of things that you can't get elsewhere. Oftentimes when we go into a city, when we set up a new development center, the mayor of the city will give us, buildings, they'll give us developments, they'll give us a lot of land. They'll help to really make things, if you're picked as a partner for that city, they'll really help you along, even sort of bend some of the rules and regulations for you, help you get loans. So a lot of people, most of the people who are successful in China play ball with the government. And that's also why it's a little bit hard for a lot of Western companies who want to go into China and I'll sort of, I don't know if Megan's here, but I'll use Google as an example. Google, yeah, so I mean, Google in China, one of the challenges I think Google has in China is that, to be successful in China, you sort of have to play ball with the government. And that oftentimes is sort of misaligned with the values and principles of Google. So for example, because Google doesn't want to run the same problems that Yahoo ran into in terms of giving up people or sort of not having not having to sort of give information over to the government. They don't store any personal data or any personal identifiable data. So that really hobbles a lot of the cool things that Google can let you do. A lot of the cool services on Google really aren't accessible in China. Stuff like Gmail, all those servers for Gmail are outside of China. So if you actually want to access Gmail from within China, sometimes it's actually quite slow. So, why did Yahoo ultimately basically sell to Alibaba and have Alibaba run it? Is because, Alibaba knows how to play ball with the Chinese government and knows how to sort of work with the government in partnership. And oftentimes, people think of it sort of as this, as the government being this monolithic group that, clamps down. In reality, the government actually is quite flexible when you're actually working with them. So all these things like censorship and things like people are worried about, there's actually a lot of ways that around those issues. A lot of it really is just, being, partnering up with them and actually finding ways to sort of meet their interests. So a lot of times, like for instance, people worry about censorship. Most of the companies that, Facebook is afraid to launch in China because they don't want to have Falun Gong on the site and suddenly get shut down and get blocked. Well, other sites like Xiaomi are successful in China because they maintain a group that basically monitors those sites and actually works with anytime there's anything that's sort of, they do a lot of self-policing, so it's a little bit like a social compact or something, like that they have with the government. So it's stuff like that that requires companies to really think about China. If you want to be successful there, I think, oftentimes it requires you to retune, re-engineer, rethink, or adapt your model a bit to be successful there. But today, I mean, certainly, again, the numbers are growing very quickly. Internet, the market is huge. It's growing very fast. 400 plus million, cell phone, mobile phone users, 200 plus million internet users, and frankly, with all the things that we've sort of said about sort of the government and things, really it's really today the Wild West out there. So I mean, they're really one of the reasons why a lot of things seem very seem to be sort of draconian ways of dealing with stuff is because there's really a lack of rules. There's sort of a lack of precedent. So a lot of times, most of the stuff that you find happening is it's because there's really no rules. And I'll have one last comment to make, and that is actually, so one of the funniest things that actually I always found, first when I got to China I found it was very troubling, but now it's sort of kind of funny, is so a lot of the laws that you find in China always have this sort of additional tagline of, there's always the option of capital punishment. So, for example, tax evasion. If you're committing a tax evasion over $5,000 US, the government has the option to have capital punishment, right? and so I asked a lot about that, and actually the numbers have started coming down a little bit about capital punishment. I asked some government officials about it, and they said that it's because they know that lawyers are very smart, that they always have that option just in case that they have to apply it. And oftentimes you find that most of the government officials I talked to about it, they often said that people are so smart that they're always going to find a loophole around the law. So they try to make the law a little looser, and they try to make it so there's always that ultimate punishment, so they can make an example out of people. So yeah, don't be the example.
Well, thank you.